Hostage Lane, the war of the clipboard. She yelled hostage so loud the cows stopped chewing and turned their heads. I hadn't even said a word yet. One minute, she was cruising up my private drive in a shiny champagne-colored suburban SUV, clipboard in hand like it was the sword of justice. The next, she was screaming into her phone, telling 911 that a rancher had locked her inside, some kind of backwoods hostage compound surrounded by barbed wire, wild bulls, and possibly aggressive barn cats. I might have laughed if she hadn't been dead serious. And if this hadn't been the second time that month, I'd had to explain my own land to the same weary deputy. It had all started with a so-called wrong turn. Or so I'd thought. I was on my porch, drinking coffee, watching the sunrise stretch over the ridgeline, when I saw a silver SUV crawling down the gravel road toward my barn. Now, this road is clearly marked private property. No trespassing in letters large enough to stop a moose. She must have missed it, or ignored it. Definitely the latter. She barreled through the dust like she was chasing down a suspect, pulled up by the barn, slammed her door, and stepped out like she was about to give a TED Talk on property violations. She had that haircut you only see on women who collect neighborhood complaints, like baseball card short, perfectly round, like it was sculpted by a geometry teacher. Red blazer, sunglasses too big for her head, and the kind of strut that screamed, "I run the PDA and the neighborhood watch." I tried to be civil. I walked toward her, thinking maybe she was lost or having car trouble. She didn't say hello, just barked, "You're in violation of multiple HOA access guidelines." She jabbed the gravel at her feet like it had committed a crime. "This road falls under shared neighborhood management. You can't restrict access." I blinked. I live alone, on 60 acres. The nearest HOA is 2 miles away and doesn't control a single square inch of this land. I told her that as calmly as I could, maybe too calmly, because her nostrils flared like a bull about to charge. "Sir," she said, her voice rising with righteous indignation, "I'm the acting vice chair of infrastructure enforcement. This road must be inspected for community safety." She said she'd already logged 2 complaints. "From who?" I asked. "I can't disclose that due to privacy laws." "Do you even live around here?" "That's not relevant," she snapped. Then she started walking toward my barn, like she was entitled to take a tour. I stepped in front of her. "You need to leave." She scoffed, spun on her heel, muttered something about how I clearly didn't understand the law. So I did what any rancher would do when a stranger ignores posted signs and pretends they're in charge. I walked up to the gate, closed it behind her SUV, and locked it with a satisfying clink. She froze. "Wait, are you locking me in?" "Yes," I said, arms crossed. "You drove onto private land. I don't want more visitors thinking this is some kind of community park." "You can leave any time," I added. "Just ask me to unlock it." That's when the performance began. She yanked out her phone like it was a gun. "Yes, I'm trapped," she told the dispatcher, her voice now trembling. "He's locked me in. I don't feel safe. I think he's holding me hostage." Meanwhile, my dog had wandered over and sat next to me, yawning. I offered her a water bottle. She swatted it away like I'd offered her poison. 10 minutes later, the same deputy who'd helped me scare off coyotes last fall rolled in. He looked from me to her to my dog and sighed. She ran toward him like she was auditioning for a soap opera. "He locked me in. I told you. He locked me in." "Hank," he said, looking at me. I held up my property deed like a badge. "Every inch is mine. For posted signs. Want me to point them out?" He turned to her. "Ma'am, this is private property. You're trespassing." She turned red, then white, then some worrying shade of plum. "He can't lock me in," she hissed. "Did he threaten you?" the deputy asked. "No, but his tone was threatening." "Did he tell you that you couldn't leave?" "Well, he didn't open the gate." "Did you ask him to?" She paused, realized she hadn't, then pivoted. "He mocked me, said I had to ask for permission like I was a prisoner." "Ma'am," the deputy said, his patience fading, "asking for a gate to be opened after trespassing isn't the same as being held hostage." That's when she shrieked. Not yelled, shrieked. The chickens scattered. My dog whimpered. "Do you want to press charges?" the deputy asked me. I held up the deed. "No, but I'd appreciate it if folks stopped treating my ranch like a public resource. He asked me to unlock the gate. I did. She peeled out of the driveway like she was escaping a horror movie. I waved. My dog howled. For effect. But I knew it wasn't over. People like her, let's call her Melinda, don't know how to quit. They think clipboards equal jurisdiction. They believe neighborhood equals ownership. The next morning, I was feeding chickens when I heard the crunch of tires again. I looked up and saw not just her SUV, but two more behind it. They parked outside the gate this time, learning, I suppose, and began setting up shop like a mobile HOA war room. Tables, clipboards, even a thermos of coffee. A guy in a faded polo introduced himself as the acting HOA president. Badge printed at home, laminated at Staples. Another woman started collecting dirt samples. In Ziploc bags. Melinda strutted to the gate, pointed at my private property sign, and smirked. She handed me a letter filled with buzzwords like jurisdictional overlap and easement concern. No legal citations. Just her signature and a made-up title, Vice Chair of Roadway Oversight. You've got 10 minutes, I said. Then I'm calling the sheriff again. You can't block a publicly accessible road, she shouted. This isn't public, I reminded her. It never has been. She yelled about rural landowners having too much power. That's when I walked to my barn and brought out the backhoe. They froze. I drove it slow, real deliberate, and dug a shallow trench just deep enough to make sure no cars could pass. Then I posted a sign. By foot or horse only. Private ranch. Trespassers escorted out by goat. Melinda turned a disturbing shade of red. Her squad started whispering. One looked like she wanted to leave. Melinda shouted, "This is aggression. A hostile act." Then she dialed 911. Again. "Yes, hello. I'm back at the property. The man has dug a trench. An actual trench. It's vehicle entrapment. Yes, I believe this is part of a broader intimidation campaign." Deputy showed up again. He saw the trench. Saw me leaning on the backhoe. Exhaled like he regretted becoming a lawman. "Again, ma'am." Melinda launched into her thesaurus rant, modifying access ways under contested oversight. The deputy cut her off. I handed him my deed again, now tabbed and highlighted. He nodded. "Ma'am, this road is his. It always has been. He can dig moats, build toll booths, or plant sunflowers for all I care. He's attacking us with infrastructure," she screamed. He turned to me. "You ever consider writing a book?" I told him I'd settle for peace. But peace wasn't coming. Not yet. 3 days later, I came home from town to find a manila envelope taped to my gate. Inside was a civil complaint, alleging obstruction, harassment, environmental damage, and psychological trauma. Filed by the HOA. Signed by Melinda. Same fake title. I call my lawyer Clay. Old school, part-time cattleman, full-time courtroom brawler. When I read him the complaint, he laughed so hard he dropped the phone. "Let's bury them in paperwork," he said. And we did. Land surveys, zoning records, deed maps, everything proving my sole ownership. Meanwhile, Melinda was on Facebook claiming I was a rogue land baron attacking volunteers with construction equipment. Court came fast. Melinda showed up in high drama-bright purple blazer, 2 assistants, and a guy in Italian loafers who looked allergic to sunlight. Clay handed the judge our file and said, "Your Honor, this is a case study in entitlement." Our surprise witness? My neighbor Curtis, retired surveyor, memory like a steel trap. He brought original plats from the 1980s. Shut their arguments down cold. The judge dismissed the complaint. Order Melinda's HOA to pay my legal fees. Her expression was art. Like someone had fed her a lemon and then slapped her with a fish. But she wasn't done. The next day, flyers popped up around town. Cartoons of me with a pitchfork. Headline, "The Road Bandit Strikes Again." I didn't respond. Instead, I rented a billboard just outside town. Private ranch. No hostages here. HOA free since 1938. Below, a cartoon goat kicked over a clipboard. That one got attention. Tourists stopped. Locals Loga. One reporter called me the legend of Hostage Lane. Melinda posted that I was engaging in signage-based psychological warfare. The deputy texted me 3 laughing emojis. Then came the drone. One morning, I saw it hovering over my barn. A big quadcopter, camera blinking. I tracked it to the tree line. There she was, Melinda, standing beside her SUV with a controller, eyes locked on the drone like she was flying a military op. I flipped on my old windmill. Just enough spin to create interference. The drone clipped a gust and tumbled into the barn wall. Boom! Melinda came stomping. You destroyed my property. You flew unauthorized aircraft over private land, I said calmly. She called 911 again. Yes, there's been an airborne collision, she told the dispatcher. He weaponized wind energy. Deputy came. Again. Ma'am, he sighed. You can't keep calling because your drone crashed on someone else's land. He sabotaged it. With a windmill, ma'am? She stormed off, covered in mud, screaming about civil rights. Next, she called a town meeting, proposed expanding HOA oversight into rural buffer zones. I attended, quietly. She got up, made a speech about community safety, visual harmony, and environmental respect. Then she said, one resident has mocked us, intimidated us, caused psychological harm with trench warfare and weaponized goats. Someone yelled, "Are you saying a goat hurt your feelings?" The whole place erupted. Her proposal never even made it a vote. A week later, the HOA voted to remove Melinda from her acting position. They sent me an apology letter. Signed. Official. Included a $26 check for back rent on the gate land I found I legally owned thanks to an old parcel map. I framed the check. Has sign carved. Welcome to Hostage Lane. Population, 1 stubborn rancher. Clipboard count, 0. Melinda hasn't come back. But I still get mail addressed to Minister of Gravel Defense or Commander of Mode Operations. I keep them in a box labeled trophies. The ranch is quiet now. The road is mine. And the goats? They're still undefeated.